Welcome to the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board interview with candidates for State House District 36, a Seminole County-based district, currently held by Representative Rachel Plakon, who owns a real estate brokerage and is married to the former representative from this area. She will face Kelley Diona Miller, a Democrat with extensive experience in nonprofits. And we will go to Chris for the first question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this goes to the only thing that legislators are required to do, and that is to write a budget. And it's going to be tricky over these next couple of years because Florida has had 3+ years of record spending, thanks in large part to a massive infusion of COVID cash from the federal government. Over the next 2 years, however, if spending continues at this rate, state economist Amy Baker has said that Florida could go from a $2 billion surplus to a $2.9 billion shortfall. What should the legislature do starting in 2025 to deal with this reality? And we'll start with Ms. Miller.
Thank you for the question, Chris. So in 2025, legislators must approach this potential shortfall in a strategy that balances fiscal responsibility and the need to maintain essential services, prioritizing core services that are critical for the well-being of Floridians and long-term economic growth. So I do believe in the overall economic growth for the state and a broader promotion of that, incentivizing small businesses, attracting new industries, and really supporting innovation. So I 100% believe that the fiscal responsibility is on the legislators, and I hope to do that in Tallahassee.
Thank you so much. Representative Plakon, your ideas.
Well, thank you for having me here today. You know, a deficit is unlikely to happen, though. We've had a very responsible legislature here in Florida with a AAA credit rating, the highest there is. And if you compare us with New York, we have millions of more people, and yet our budget is roughly half the size of New York's budget. We've spent less in the last session than previous years, and we funded amazing projects, such as universal school choice to give underprivileged kids a fighting chance. And when it comes to budget priorities, when times are tough, I look at what is going to benefit my district. Certainly, you want to have ample reserves so you can preserve education, healthcare, infrastructure, and public safety as much as possible. And after that, I think about what else would benefit my district, or is it a budget item that a constituent directly asked for, and will it make things better for us here in Seminole County? And with member projects, I like to see matching local and federal dollars. And overall, I'm elected to represent the people, so I want to ensure priorities reflect the needs of my constituents.
Thank you for that answer. I will move on to the next topic. Florida still has a large number of people who lack healthcare access. Do you see a path for Florida to expand Medicaid to cover low-income working families? And what other strategies would you consider to be most effective in that field? And Representative Plakon, we'll start with you.
Well, I actually don't see a path because what we're really talking about is expanding it to able-bodied adults that are capable of working. There was a controlled trial that showed that giving someone government insurance does not make them better, but what does make them better is access to care. And I support access to care at a lower cost, and we can achieve that through several ways: cash-based consumer market, more transparency. Families should be able to choose their own doctor and their own pathway, and that's what will make people better. In the legislature, I co-sponsored a bill to expand access to care for people with disabilities and for children, but I don't support it if we're talking about able-bodied adults. The cost would be high. Florida taxpayers would pay 10%, and there was a Milliman study actually that found that expanding Medicaid would cost Florida up to $17.2 billion over 10 years. So let's say, for the sake of simplicity, we're talking about $1 billion a year or more. And the question is, where would that money come from? And, we started this off by talking about priorities and stuff, and where would, we have to look at where we would get that money from. And I just don't see where it would benefit us to expand it to able-bodied adults.
Thank you for that. Ms. Miller, what is your view?
I believe in expanding Medicare for all. All Floridians should have access to affordable health care. And I do believe that we can find the funding in Florida to pay for this expansion and allow the opportunity for every person in Florida to have safe health care. And I would definitely support that.
Another big funding challenge is always how to best fund public schools. There are a couple of issues in the coming years with education funding. One is that there is the possibility of some funding shortfalls, possibly not deficits, but definitely less money to spend. And in the past, the legislature has made up for those shortfalls by, in part or in total, raising local property taxes. I would like to know, first off, where you would like to prioritize education spending and make sure that there's enough. And we'll start with Ms. Miller.
Yes, I believe in prioritizing public schools and the funding for public schools. Every child has a need and deserves access to quality education, regardless of their zip code. So when you look at the private spending for vouchers that divert from public spending, I just don't support it. I support public education. I'm not against private schools, but I definitely believe that we should support the public school system and then allow for the funding for private schools to be separate.
All right, Representative Plakon.
I'm for the voucher program because I feel that freedom is best when it comes to our public schools. It's best to let parents decide what's best for their kids, whether public or private. And you look at what the vouchers actually did. And what I believe they actually did was empower parents. You know, you think about nobody loves you like your mama. I have my 2-year-old Gracie, and nobody loves her like I do. And when turns 5, you know, I'm going to send her to the best school that I would have done a lot of research on and made sure that it fits her needs, you know, and not every school fits every student's needs. But if public schools are the best schools, when parents are able to shop around and schools are able to compete, then they're going to get the most funding.
Thank you for that. I will branch over to a different topic, especially being as big as the tourism industry around here. Would you be willing to support or file legislation that would give counties greater discretion in the use of tourist development taxes? And Representative Plakon, we'll start with you.
Well, the tourist development tax should be used for what it was promised to the people to be used for. You know, you look at Seminole County, funds are used to advertise and promote tourism, funding grants for cultural and fine arts entertainment, festivals, programs, and activities that promote Seminole County tourism. So I believe these are worthwhile efforts, and many of them provide economic returns. So I support keeping the tax for what it was promised for originally.
Thank you. Ms. Miller, same question.
Yes, I believe in giving counties discretion over the use of tourist development taxes. And they have a significant benefit for the community in terms of arts and culture initiatives, economic development. And I do believe that it can enhance the quality of life for residents. So I do support that.
Thank you both for your concise answers. Governor's office was revealed to be working directly with Department of Environmental Protection to build hotels, golf courses, pickleball courts, disc golf courses on public lands, on parklands, with little public notice and study as to the environmental damage that they could cause. And only the public's outcry made them backtrack. Did you oppose this? And what legislation would you suggest to ensure that it doesn't happen again? And Ms. Miller, we'll start with you.
Well, great work to those that were responsible for making sure that this did not get pushed through. I think there definitely needs to be some discretion. And I think this victory should serve as a reminder that when we speak out, we can make a real difference in preserving our environment and holding our leaders accountable in Tallahassee. So, great job on that effort. And I don't support, backdoor or policies that are not open. This should have been legislature that was open to understand what was going on within the public, and we need to have more transparency and accountability.
Thank you for that, Ms. Plakon. Your answer.
Well, I support ensuring our state parks and all of Florida's own natural lands are protected, as well as Seminole County's rural boundary. And I think about my daughter, Gracie. I want her to experience Florida in its natural state and not just in paintings. Scott and I took an RV trip in 2021. We went to 27 states. And we went to a lot of national and state parks, and we really enjoyed just the natural scenery. And that's something that I want to be able to share with Gracie in years to come. And probably the only way to ensure that it never happens again would be through a constitutional amendment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask about something that we've seen pretty steadily over the past several years. And I think we can all think of good examples, but the state legislature has passed dozens of what are known as preemption bills. That is where they undermine local governments or co-opt local government's ability to manage their own affairs. Bills intended to stop jurisdictions from passing rural boundaries, which we all know in Seminole is a very popular thing. Restrictions on leaf blowers and plastic straws. But one of the big ones that's causing a great deal of consternation right now is new rules that speak to how counties manage their homeless populations. So what I'd like to ask is, do you believe preemption has gone too far? And if so, which areas specifically do you think need to be rolled back? And then I'm going to come back to in a minute to the homeless legislation, but I wanted to get a general answer on preemption first. Representative Plakon, can we start with you?
Well, when it comes to preemption, I think that there's occasions where the legislature has to step in for freedom, for constitutional rights issues, or something along those lines. I would prefer that development and those things happen at the local level, but it just depends on the issues, because we've had cities that have really stopped affordable housing and we've had to kind of step in. And then there's other times where, because we have 67 counties, we've had, many, many different laws, and it prevents businesses from coming into the state and creating jobs when things are not streamlined. So we've gone in at times and just made things more streamlined.
All right, Ms. Miller.
Yes, so I believe that the preemptions need to be at the local level. The legislators were voted into office for a reason, and we need to make sure that legislators are making the decisions and that government is not coming in and deciding on what's best for our local citizens, our citizens in Florida, our districts in Florida. That's what our legislators are for, and I 100% believe that.
Okay, and then I wanted to follow up specifically with that homeless legislation, which many communities are complaining is going to be unworkable, and it's in effect as of today. And so I wonder what you think of that legislation, if you're familiar with it, and what role should the state government be playing in managing homelessness at the local level, And we'll start with Ms. Miller.
Yes, I'm not as familiar with that legislation. I'm not a politician, but I certainly would do the research if elected into office, because homelessness is a serious concern. I've volunteered at many homeless shelters over the years. Homelessness is a serious concern for our community, and I believe that we could do more in Tallahassee to protect homelessness and provide the resources that are needed. So I would certainly make that a priority in legislation if elected in office in November.
Thank you. Representative Plakon.
Thank you. Well, when it comes to homelessness in this particular bill, well, first of all, I'll let you know that when I was in college, I actually did inner city missions trips and worked directly with homeless folks. We actually spoke with homeless folks, were able to help them get off the streets in Los Angeles, inner city Los Angeles. And what this bill, the intention behind this bill was to, because you have folks from woke cities and bad policy around the country, you have a lot of areas where there's businesses and there's drugs all around, and they're just letting people camp right there. So what this bill actually does was consolidate the people so that you can get the resources and the services that they actually need. So in that regard, it is a really good bill. And let's just let it play out and see if there's any fixes that need to be made. But right now, I think it's a good thing that these folks are getting the services that they need.
Thank you for those answers. I wanted to move over to talk about a couple of constitutional amendments that are on the ballot this November. To start with, could you please give us your position on Amendment 3, which would legalize marijuana for personal use without the need for medical authorization? And Representative Plakon, we'll start with you.
Well, when it comes to this amendment, I don't think it's a good idea. My constituents elected me to make the best decisions for our district and the best decisions for society. And you have to ask yourself, do more drugs make a better society? And I don't think the answer is yes. I definitely think the answer is no. And you look at states where this is rolled out, Colorado, there's been more traffic fatalities. California, there was a doctor that came out and said that there's been more children rushed to the ER because they got a hold of edibles. They're now on ventilators, and they just pray that their brain function comes back. So it can be very, very dangerous. And I definitely don't think that this is a good idea.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Miller. Same question.
Yes, I will vote yes and support legalizing marijuana. I'm not sure about my opponent, but the doors that I'm knocking on, they believe in getting this legalized. Number one, it will decriminalize non-medical possession. And we know that this is an issue, especially in the African-American community. And I do believe that that is something that will benefit many by legalizing marijuana. In addition to, it provides income into the state for the sales for marijuana sales. So I support it, and I will hope that it will pass, and I do believe that it will pass.
Thank you. And I'll branch over to that to talk about Amendment 4, the next item on the ballot. What is your position on Amendment 4, which is meant to protect reproductive rights, including abortion access for Florida women? Ms. Miller, we'll start with you.
Yes, I also will be voting yes on Amendment 4. And hoping that it will pass. It is the protection of the mother. And I believe that a woman's choice is between her doctor, and her God, not between politicians. And so I do believe that if you believe in the protection of life, you should believe in the protection of life from conception to natural death. Black women specifically are 3 times more likely than others to die in childbirth. And I believe that this amendment will also help with critical services for doula services in that would be available in the community for those that are in need, and could also help save a mother's life. So I believe in the protection, and I will be voting yes on Amendment 4.
Thank you for that. Representative Plakon, what's your view?
Well, I believe life begins at conception. I've always been very honest about that. I voted for the heartbeat bill that does have the standard exceptions and then some. But when it comes to this amendment, there are other concerns as well, because there's terms that are not properly defined in this amendment, such as healthcare provider. And you have to look to the Florida statutes. What is healthcare provider in the Florida statutes? And there's organizations, attorneys, and doctors in Florida now that are coming out and saying that that could possibly mean even non-medical staff at an abortion clinic. And then you look at who can get an abortion, it removes the parental consent. So there's only parental notification now. So that's a real concern that parents are not even going to know. And this could actually just be dangerous for Florida.
All right, on to one more question about the homeless issue that we sort of tackled earlier, but this comes at it from a different angle. Is the Live Local Act, which addresses the lack of affordable housing in Florida, is it adequate to meet the needs of the community? Let's start with Representative Plakon.
Well, the Live Local Act was the largest expansion of affordable housing in Florida history. And there's a lot of good things in there, nearly 100 pages of policies, such as down payment assistance, closing cost assistance for many of our first responders, teachers, nurses. So there's really good things in there. Also streamlining the approval process to get things moving along quicker. And so I think it's a really, really good start. And of course, we went in and did a little cleanup on it, but I think that it's a wonderful bill that is helping a lot of folks.
Thank you. Ms. Miller, what's your view?
The bill is it's a good start. I definitely believe that there are some modifications that need to take place in terms of affordability. I believe that we need to advocate for stronger affordability protections, maybe extending the affordable housing mandates. I think it needs to have a little bit modification in the distribution of housing. But ultimately, I think it is strong, but it definitely needs modifications, and I would support that in Tallahassee.
And that leads us to another massive factor in the affordability of homes in Florida. And that is the fact that Florida residents pay more for, and in many cases get less from, their property insurance policies. And I think a lot of I worry very much that in the next week or so, we're going to find that more Floridians than ever have opted to go without property insurance because they simply could not afford it, and now they have lost everything. So lawmakers have gone back to Florida, back to Tallahassee, time and again to fix it, but it hasn't been fixed. So what would be your plan for rescuing the property insurance market? And I guess we'll start with Representative Plakon.
Well, when it comes to insurance, Florida has unique challenges because we have water on three sides and we have hurricanes, and that adds to the risks in companies doing business here. And also, when I came to office, we had a lot of lawsuits going on in Florida. Almost 80% of all U.S. litigation against homeowners insurance companies was happening in the state of Florida. And it was because we had bad apples that were attorneys and bad contractors. Even though there's good attorneys and contractors, we had some bad apples in there. And we went in and we passed massive tort reform, and we started seeing some prices coming down a little bit. We started seeing prices leveling off and more companies coming into Florida as a result. And I think we would have gotten more out of that had it not been for the inflation crisis coming out of Washington. We all know that the price of an insurance premium is directly tied to the price to rebuild after a hurricane. And in the last few years, building materials have skyrocketed. due in large part to the failed economic policies of the Biden-Harris administration. So we do have those challenges, but I would say moving forward, let's let this play out a little more. Let's fully fund My Safe Florida Home, where residents can get grant money to harden their homes against hurricanes. And in return, they often get lower rates.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you. Florida, respectfully, we can't afford to wait and see how things turn out. The insurance crisis is too far high for Floridians to afford property insurance. We're not the only state that has challenges. There's states like Oklahoma that experiences weather and climate issues, and they don't suffer from the same problems that we have here with affordable coverage. We need to find a way to stop carriers from cherry picking the high risk Florida homes. And I believe that doing so would help with legislation. We had a Florida State House Democrats that attempted multiple bills that could have been passed, and they were not passed ultimately because of the Republican supermajority. And I think we need to revisit some of those bills and work to get them passed and to resolve the issue. We can't afford to continue to wait. So I would support that in legislation.
Thank you so much. Both of you have been so efficient in answering questions for us that I'd like to sneak in one more. And this goes back to the budget. For decades, we've seen state money go to support local priorities. And I know that legislators are frequently very proud of the projects that they can get funded, septic to sewer projects, mental health programs, our arts and culture opportunities. And as you both know, this year, hundreds of millions of dollars in arts and culture projects were slashed when the governor killed the entire culture budget. Do you feel that the state should help fund these local priorities? And we'll start with Ms. Miller.
Yes, I do believe that the state should fund these priorities. Mental health programs, I'm a mental health first aider, and I believe that the funding needed to secure programs, to bring awareness to mental health, to bring services to mental health is really important, and it's needed for all of our state. Mental health doesn't just affect it affects us all. Every one of us, could suffer from a mental health crisis at a period of time in our life. And I believe that it should be funded. So I definitely support that.
Thank you. Representative Plakon, your answer.
I believe your question was about arts and culture funding. Was that correct?
Local projects and arts and culture as well. That was the one that got completely killed, but local projects also across the board got scalped. So,
well, I wholeheartedly believe in funding arts and culture programs. I think that a lot of times that they provide economic returns right back home. And I would add to that, Florida's film industry. I would love to see us bring that back as well. And I think that they just all of that makes Florida a better place to live and work.
well, thank you very much. We have gotten through a lot. Now I could keep you guys here all night, but I know you've had a long day, and so have we. And I really appreciate you making the time to talk with us. So in just a minute, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make closing statements. But I did want to, before I did that, remind people that the Orlando Sentinel will be making an endorsement in this race. However, as always, we urge you to not take that as the only thing that you consider. Both of these candidates have websites. They are both making many appearances and doing other forums that will give you a chance to see them in different settings. There's social media. You can talk with your friends. And of course, there will be our great news coverage as well. So there's a lot of information available on both of these leaders that have agreed to step forward and throw their hat in the ring for this race. So the most important thing, though, that you can do is make sure that you're registered to vote. The time to register for this election is coming up very quickly, just a couple days. And then make sure that you are have your plan ready to vote on or before November 5th, which is the general election in this race. And with that, we would like to go to our candidates with their closing statements. We'll start with Ms. Miller.
Thank you so much, Orlando Sentinel, for the opportunity to share my platform tonight. Listen, I am not a perfectly polished politician. I'm not here for the lights, camera, the action. I am here for the people. I ran for this seat to bring change. I'm a mom, I'm an HR professional, and I'm a community advocate. I was raised that you help others and you help your community. And I was forced to make this decision to run for office, to bring change because of where I'm at in this state, where our state is headed. I live in this community, and none of the policies or bills that my proponent has opposed or helped have helped me personally. And so I wanted to do what I needed to do in order to help that community. I'm in this community. And if it hasn't helped me, then it probably hasn't helped you. And as I've been knocking on doors, I know that it hasn't helped you. So I'm asking for the time for the change. I think things that matter to District 36 here at the local level, we need a voice in Tallahassee, one that responds to all of the needs of this district, not just the affluent. A voice in Tallahassee that's not here for the glam of politics. I'm here as the people's advocate, and I will listen, take action, and bring change to the community. And I will do that with your vote for Kelley Diona Miller, State House District 36. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Representative Plakon, you want to wrap us up?
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. 7 bills sponsored and passed, and millions brought back to our district in funding. And I'm just getting started. I've worked across the aisle with my Democrat friends in the House and Senate on issues such as clean water. And we're all familiar with the clean water bill that I did with Senator Stewart. And also, Senator Stewart and I did another bill that says that Florida is now going to keep the sexual assault kids for 50 years here in Florida. And we got it done. And that evidence can now be used to help solve other crimes. So I will continue to bring unity. I'll continue to work across the aisle, continue lowering our taxes, and making Florida more affordable. I've been one of the most accessible legislators. I give out my personal cell phone, 407-575-3964. You could also learn more about me at rachelplakon.com. So thank you so much. And I would love the opportunity to continue to serve the great people of Seminole County.
Thank you. I really appreciate once again you taking the time to be here, and we wish you both the best of luck.